My name is Mary Lou Eisel. I have an ARBA judge license. It's number 815. I got my license in 2004. I started Cavies at the show level in 1985. I joined the ARBA right after my first convention, which was Ohio. I think that was in '86. I had a boarding kennel, and I had a young man working for me at the time who was the son of family friends who decided he would like to raise cavies, and his parents said, "You are not having cavies at our house." So he said, "Could I have the cavies at your house? Could we go partners on this and we'll get rich real fast?" And so he went into a local pet shop and found a brochure for the Ontario Cavie Club. And in that brochure was a lady in Marine City, Michigan, which is very close to us. And he contacted her and she said, "Well, my daughter's gone off to university and she isn't interested in the cavies anymore like she was. I would like to sell what we have left," which I think was about 3 dozen cavies and all the cages and all the equipment and food and books and shavings and everything. We paid $100 for it. These are show quality animals. The lady told us that these were wonderful animals and they were amazing, and I thought, well, she wants to sell them, so I'm sure that she's going to tell us a really good story about how great these animals are. There was a Ontario Cavie Club show that was happening very close to us, so I thought, well, let's just go and see how wonderful these cavies are. The judge for that show was Dory Wilkins, whose mother was Ray Wilkins, who was one of the premier breeders of Peruvians in Ontario, and in North America, actually. And she came over to us after the show and said, "Where did you get your Peruvians from? They're amazing." And I thought, well, maybe this lady was actually telling us the truth. So that first show kind of hooked us. We won a couple of breeds at that show. Bruce Eisel was showing at the show, and he actually won Best in Show with his coronet.
And he is related to you?
Well, he wasn't then. He related to me. But I married Bruce in 1989. We got married and had 2 children. My younger daughter is a new ARBA Cavie judge. My husband is also an ARBA Cavie judge. I believe that my daughter is the first second-generation Cavie judge whose both parents were ARBA Cavie judges. For rabbits and cavies in the province of Ontario. Okay, we have 2 distinct groups for rabbits that do both rabbits and cavies. One is the Dominion Rabbit and Cavie Breeders Association, and while it says Dominion, it's actually very local. It's within 100 miles of the city of Toronto, more or less. Then we have the Ontario Council of Rabbit Clubs, which is a group of ARBA rabbit clubs. Unfortunately, they're kind of shrinking. Used to be several clubs. There was a Lambton County Club, which is my county. That club's gone defunct. The Southern Ontario Club, that was Brampton Meldon's club, it's gone defunct. Kitchener-Waterloo Club, which was Bing Harris's club, it's gone. We still have the 4 City Club centered in London. That is John Richter and Mark Stewartson were the backbone of that club for many years, and Betty Fletcher is sort of taking it over now. And then we have the Eastern Ontario Club, which is still going. And there's the Ontario Cavie Club is the 3rd group, and it is just cavies. It's been around since the 1950s. We have our own standard. We've always been a very progressive club. We have breeds and color varieties that are not in the ARBA standard are accepted in Ontario. Alpacas, which we call bouclés. We have merinos, which is a Texel with a crest. We have satin cresteds. We allow self-cresteds as opposed to just white cresteds.
So you have more breeds?
We have more breeds. We had Tans and Martins before they were accepted in the ARBA standard. We had Cows before they were accepted in the ARBA standard.
Do you have a licensing procedure to be a judge?
We do now, that's fairly new, to have the licensing process within OCC is fairly new. It used to be breeders, and the members would ballot on a list of breeders that they wish to have judge their shows.
So it sounds a little similar to how judges are selected in England.
Very well. Canada's a member of the British Commonwealth, so we are very much, our whole pattern of our KB shows has been formatted from England.
The Ontario KB Club shows that exist today, who's judging those?
It's a group of people that are on the list. They're approved to be on the list by the board. We have one person on that list who is actually an Ontario KB Club licensed judge, and that's Erica Leslie. She's fairly new in the fancy. We have just have a new licensing process, and she is the first and only licensed judge.
Okay.
The rest of our judges were grandfathered in and are voted upon. To get your Ontario KB Club license, you have to show secretary at a number of shows, which shows that you know what the show process is, how it runs, how it works. You also have to write at shows, which also teaches you how shows work. You take a test and you do apprentice under judges.
Yes.
So it's probably about a 2-year process to get your license. But with Ontario too, you have to be a member of a couple of years before you get it, so it's not quite as short as I said. But you have to be a member for a certain amount of time with ARBA, okay. Then you have to take your registrar test. Then you have to register the 15 Cavies or 25 rabbits. Then you have to wait until there are 2 candidates to take the test or go to an ARBA convention to take the test, and then you have to do your 8 assists. So it is quite a lengthy process.
Are there ARBA licensed judges that are currently judging for your Ontario?
Yes, there are. Jim Hupp is on our ballot, and he and I take turns being who's the top voted judge in Ontario. I think right now, John Soper's on our list too. We put in a membership clause a few years ago, and that's really hurt us because we had James Goodrich on our list and John Bachman on our list, and it just gets to the point where you cannot afford, or you have other things you would rather spend your money on than club memberships. And if you have to pay to join a club to go up and judge one show a year, do you really want to do that? You cannot get an Ontario KB Club's ARBA sanction because we are not an ARBA club. Same with Dominion, none of the Dominion shows are ARBA sanctioned. Dominion also has a licensing process for KBs and judges.
To be a licensed judge with Dominion, were you grandfathered in?
Because Liz Voigt and I rewrote the KB judge test, and the board felt that I should still write the test, Liz said that's not really necessary, so I received an abbreviated form of the test in which I wrote. I'm a licensed KB judge with ARBA, Ontario KB Club, and Dominion Rabbit KB Breed Association.
With the OCC show or the club, what's your biggest show of the year? Is there a convention equivalent?
Yeah, we have a convention show in the spring. We try to spread it around a little bit in our area of operation. Even though we call ourselves Ontario KB Club, nobody lives up in the far north, so it's just in southwestern Ontario. We had just over 400 animals at our convention show this year.
All from Canada?
No, they were not all from Canada. They were from, well, we had Ontario, exhibitors from Ontario, Quebec, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York.
What inspires someone from the States to come over and show pigs at that show?
Because the people in the United States realize what a wonderful, amazing group of people we are in Canada and how much fun we are.
Why?
It really is true, because our shows are more fun. We're not as competitive, I guess I should say. We don't have a real sweepstakes program. We do to a certain extent, but a lot of Americans are very sweepstakes oriented.
But you have a best in show?
Oh, of course,
right?
We have a best in show.
So it's competitive.
Oh, it's competitive, right?
Say you were judging the whole show. You had
Right,
days to
correct.
do it. Would you think that would you expect the quality to be better there or at a specialty, ACBA specialty?
The quality that we're finding in Ontario right now is competitive with other shows, but then we have people like myself, like Denise Robertson, like Heather Boutsmith, who do go and compete at big American specialty and convention shows.
What breeds do really well in the OCC and ARBA?
Americans, Peruvians, probably your top, most competitive breeds right now.
It wouldn't matter where you were living.
Oh, it depends very much. It depends on where you are. You get to areas of the country where teddies are exceedingly strong. You get another area where white crestons are exceedingly strong. It's very localized by who is working and who has put a lot of effort and often a lot of expense into the animals to get the quality.
In your experience right now, what breed has the best quality in Ontario?
I would have to say the smooth coat breed, and we do call them smooth coats. We don't call them Americans.
Could those smooth coats compete as Americans in US?
Of course, they can and they do.
Okay.
One of our blacks was best op at convention last fall. One of Heather's Teddy Satins was best of breed Teddy Satin. Denise Robertson took best of breed and best op American down at specialty. We had best junior. She had best intermediate as well. So the Canadians cleaned up at specialty down in Texas.
Did any of those pigs come back here and do anything?
Yeah, the one that we had who was best intermediate black, she didn't do anything beyond that. She did quite well at our Ontario Cavie Club convention.
What's going on in the rest of Canada?
There's a couple of people that I kind of mentor a little out in Eastern Canada. They are both working a lot with 4-H and trying to include more 4-H activity. 4-H in Canada is essentially flat as far as rabbits and cavies are concerned. I think there's a lot of potential there that we could tap into that we don't. As far as shows, they do fair shows, they do the odd ARBA show. Quebec has the two groups here. We have the ARBA shows and we have the Quebec group shows. You get out, Manitoba is pretty flat right now, Saskatchewan's pretty flat. There was a thriving Cavie group out in Alberta for a long time. They hosted the ACBA Specialty Show. The only time the ACBA Specialty Show has not been in the lower 48 was when it was in Canada. So I believe it was in '89 that they did the specialty show. Yeah, it's been
Almost 30 years.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. British Columbia, strictly ARBA shows, rabbits and cavies. Quebec has done at Drummondville show, they have done Ontario Cavie Club shows. People in Quebec it's a cavie show, let's go and do it. They don't care if it's a Dominion show or an OCC show or a ARBA show. If there's a cavie show and it's in their area, it's doable, let's go do it. Ontario people tend to be much more club affiliated. They will only show for one group. You get some who cross over, like Bill Gardhouse is a classic example. I'm sure you know Bill. He won ARBA convention with New Zealand many years ago. He is a Dominion judge. He shows Dominion, he shows ARBA. He just likes to show his rabbits.
And the rabbits are obviously competitive with both groups.
Right, right.
The standards in Dominion and then for your Ontario club, are they similar to ARBA?
The Dominion Club uses the Ontario Cavie Club Cavie standard. They have their own rabbit standard. ARBA shows the cavies all have to be legibly earmarked. They can be tagged or they can be tattooed. Tattoo is not really useful in most cavies because of their skin color. Ontario Cavie Club and Dominion do not tag cavies. We use a piece of ear tape a piece of tape with their coop number. They're assigned a coop number. That coop number is written on the tape, and it is put on their ear. The rabbits are sharpied. Their coop number's sharpied in their ear. Well, if you know your animals, like I can reach into a pen of blacks and people will say, oh, the blacks all look alike. I can pull out the one I want because I know what my animals look like. I think original premise was a lot of people were, particularly with Cavies, you would have a breeding unit of 50 pigs. As long as it was a black, who cared?
Do you notice a difference or a struggle that Cavie breeders face if they're moving into like the ARBA sector?
I think the biggest hurdle to overcome is that a ear tag will not kill your guinea pig. It doesn't hurt them.
But it might hurt the show and potential because do you have breeders that don't show?
We have breeders who refuse to tag, who refuse if there is an ARBA show. They will not enter or show because they will not tag. I have sold Cavies to people who want to show who have removed the tag because they don't want that offending thing in their animal's ear.
Do you think there's a place for those three clubs, Dominion, Ontario, and ARBA? Is there a reason to have three?
I don't know as if there's any particular reason to have three clubs in Ontario, except it's just tradition.
What do
the way it's always been.
Yeah, there's that way in rabbits and Cavies,
Yes,
isn't there?
yes.
Are there some people that are strictly only going to show in Dominion or OCC?
Yes, there are people who will not show at ARBA shows who are very adamant that they will never show at ARBA. And their excuse is always the ear tagging. They don't want to ear tag.
Do they know your history? I mean, you're pretty famous in the ARBA.
Yes.
Do they think of you negatively in some regard because of your adherence to our group?
Yes, and I know I'm going to take a lot of flack in 2 weeks when I'm off judging an ARBA show in Ontario and not going to an Ontario Cavie Club show in Ontario.
What will I say?
Oh, look at her, she's gone all ARBA on us. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's happened before.
Oh yes, many times, yes.
And it's the main difference is the tagging.
That seems to be the main hurdle that people don't want to go through, overcome is the ear tagging.
Do you feel like it's maybe a sense of pride as well? Are they married to?
Oh, to a certain extent, of course. I hadn't thought about that angle, but there are some people that this is in Ontario. This is Ontario. We are Canada. We are going to do things our way. We are not going to allow ourselves to be influenced by the Americans. Harsh, isn't it?
So, what happened to you?
But I think I must have been born with a French spirit, because if it's a Cavie show, I'm going to go. It's a Cavie show. I don't care if it's an ARBA show or a Dominion show or an OCC show. Well, if I'm free, I'll go.
What was your first ARBA show?
Might have been a specialty.
See, you were serious about Cavies by the time you decided to go. If it was a specialty that you were going to go to. Well,
you get hearing about, oh, there's these big shows in the States, you've got to go because you see all these wonderful things, and so, yeah.
Do you remember your first reaction when you went to a show in ARBA?
My first reaction, I remember, was convention, because it's just, there is a sea of rabbits. That's just thousands. You can't imagine what a building full of 15,000 rabbits looks like until you've actually seen it.
Did it have an effect on you?
Yeah, I wanted to go and do more. Yeah.
So it worked.
Of course.
Yeah, that's cool. When did you become ACBA president?
I guess I would have taken over in 2010 as ACBA president. I was president for 4 years.
Has there ever been a president from Canada in the past of ACBA?
No,
You were the first.
yes.
Did you get any flack from Americans being Canadian?
To a certain extent.
What happened?
Particularly from out west, there were people saying, we don't want some Canadian being president of our club. And then they kind of realized, she's doing a good job. Maybe that was not such a bad idea.
And you were already doing more ARBA, correct? And ACBA?
Correct.
So it wasn't like you were a foreigner.
Even though I'm a foreigner.
Even though you're a foreigner. If you could make the ideal Cavie and rabbit community, and you have Canadians and Americans, what would it look like?
I don't know if I have enough imagination to answer that question.
Would you like us all to be in one building?
That would be lovely, but it would never work. We're just we're too different. When people become passionate about something, they often direct that passion in a negative manner, which is rather unfortunate. If we could direct our passion in a positive manner, we would all get along much better.
If you could tell ACBA members about why you go and still continue on with OCC and where you began and the Dominion, what would you tell them? What would be your greatest experience that you wish that ACBA members could experience?
Oh, it has to be our OCC convention.
Because?
Because of the camaraderie. It's the people. If it was just the animals, I would not have stayed in the fancy this long. It's the people. I can go to nearly any state in the United States, walk up, knock on a door, and have a bed for the night. And I've had it happen. We were stranded once in Southern Tier in New York. Car broke down, there were no motel rooms, and Bruce, this is before we had cell phones, he called, found a phone and called Winona Criddle. She said, "Where are you? I'll be there in an hour." Took us back to her house, and we spent the night at her house, and she took us back to get our car when it was fixed.
Cool stuff.
Yeah.
Do you hope to be doing this for a while longer?
As long as I enjoy it, I'll be doing it.
I knew your name before I ever knew who you were. So, I mean, I was like, wow, she's Canadian and I thought it was cool. Like, but I didn't know. I mean, to me, everyone's the same thing. So,
Bingo.
yeah.
Yeah. We're all the same. We're here because we like furry little rodents. Yes. Yeah. Even though some of them are lagomorphs. Stop looking at me like that, Lizzie. You can cut that part out too. To get an ARBA license, I think it would take less time to become a brain surgeon.
Anything going on in the Northern Territories?
I think they like to survive up there. Like, I haven't heard of anybody up there raising rabbits or cavies, really. Nothing. My accent didn't give me away.
I knew your name before I ever knew who you were. Just to pretend the camera's not even on you. All right, so.
Right.